Covered now with lines and creases, tickets swung in hand, memories in bits and pieces, traces of...
Welcome to the West End Video Newsletter. My name is Joe LaPiccolo, your host for this week's show. We have a real interesting program this week. It's going to be on the Elizabeth Peabody House, which is now located in Somerville, Mass. On Broadway. The Peabody House began around the year 1896 in the old West End of Boston, and it had many innovative programs, especially the women's women's daycare programs and child care. They were the pioneers of these type of programs. The Peabody House also had many youth programs, and which were carried over into Somerville when the Peabody House moved to Somerville around 1958, I believe. And today we have many interesting guests here to tell us about the new Peabody House. Our first guest is Suzanne Palma, Executive Director of the Peabody House.
Oh, hey, Joe. Thank you for inviting us today. As you see, I brought a few of my program heads with me, and on my right is Julie Yeh, who's the Director of the Social Services Department, and Kate Roper, who's the Director of the Infant and Toddler Teacher Training Program. And to my left is Lorin Johnsen, who's the Director of Child Care Services, and Sydney Storey, who is the Video Coordinator and also Director of the Youth Drama Group. As you mentioned, Joe, we're looking at our Centennial. We're going to be 100 years old pretty soon. And we're looking forward to even greater programs in the future. Right now we're very heavily involved with daycare programs, having just opened the first infant and toddler daycare center in the city of Somerville. Another first for us was our infant and toddler teacher training program, which Kate will address later on in the program. Our next big step is an expansion of our daycare programs, and we're now working with the Ames Envelope Company to open a daycare facility in their on their premises, and we're quite excited about this venture. It's one of the first business-private partnership ventures in the city of this type. I am going to give the program back to you so that the other folks here will be able to expand on their particular programs. But again, you were correct, Joe. We were originally chartered in 1896 in the West End of Boston, and we came into Somerville in 1958, and we bought the old church property that we're presently in 1978, and we've expanded quite rapidly. We now have 4 off-site locations, plus our beautiful camp in Sharon on Lake Massapog, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
That's great. And as I say from the beginning, you are carrying on the traditions of the old Peabody House.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
We'll get to our first guest now is Julie Yeh, Program Director, Social Services Department. Can you tell us what the Social Services Department is and what it does?
Okay, basically there are 3 components to what the Social Service Department does. One of them is individual casework, working with individual clients, whether it's kids from our daycare programs or women, individual women from our women's groups.
So you have both children and adults in the that you take care of.
Right.
We're going to a film clip now. Can you explain as we go along?
Here I was working with one of the child from our daycare programs, and I help a lot of the kids. I do some activities with them, some arts and crafts activities. Some of the kids from our daycare programs have behavioral problems or emotional problems, and they are referred to me. Here's the Vietnamese women's group that I run. This is another component of the Social Service Department. We run a lot of groups. There are women's groups and also youth groups, and also groups of children. The Vietnamese women's group meets bi-monthly, and they meet for activities, trips, and also for information sessions. And here's a woman from the Somerville Mental Health Clinic talking about AIDS and AIDS prevention to the Vietnamese women's group, and we work with a translator, when the women meet.
Great. How many clients do you feel do you service?
In terms of the different groups, whether it's the women's group or the teen groups, I think altogether we serve around 50, 60 clients in just in the groups.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are also individual cases, probably another 30, 40 individual cases.
It's quite a task.
Yeah, it is.
And where do your clients come from? The surrounding, just Somerville or surrounding areas?
About 95% are from Somerville, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people from outside who come in for, just ask questions. For example, if people come in asking about shelter situations or about food pantries, I also work with them on that. During the summer, I'm also the camp coordinator, and basically it's the Somerville Community Day Camp. We work with another, close to around 100 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a day camp program.
Oh, great. And how long have you been doing this type of service at the Peabody House?
This is my close to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been there for a while.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the women's program?
Yes, we have a women's group. It's more activities oriented, and the women usually meet for social activities. It's also a support group, and they meet for cooking activities, or I think they're making burritos, and they also meet for they go out for dinner, go to beauty shops to get the facials and
So what's happening there?
They're cooking and eating, Joe.
Cooking activity, right? and they also have potluck dinners every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
The women's group.
They insert them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That was great. You really enlightened us on the programs, and you're doing a great job there in serving the community.
I work with a lot of volunteers, and obviously all these programs I can't run all by myself, so I coordinate a lot of volunteers.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested in volunteering to work with a group or work with individual kids, they can
Great.
call the Peabody House.
Okay, fine.
Joe,
next-
if I might
Yes.
just add, she's a very modest young lady, but she does a lot more than she has just said. That we do have another program I'd like people to know about. It's called the Friend to Friend program, whereby we match a volunteer with a child, and much like the Big Sister, Big Brother program. And Julie's been responsible for the tremendous growth in that. We have anywhere from 12 to 15 children at one time that we service in that program. And along with that, we've activated the Jane Dale Essay Scholarship Contest, which we run every single year and give awards out to the children in the schools in Somerville. And Julie has been responsible for that as well.
Okay, fine. Great. That's quite a program you have there. Our next guest is Kate Roper, Director of the Infant Toddler Teachers Program. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Jeff.
Can you tell us something about your program?
I run the Infant Toddler Teacher Training Program. This is our second year. We're a community-based program. Basically, we have classes in the Peabody House, and it's open to low-income residents of Somerville and the surrounding communities. It's a 9-month-long program. We mostly have women in the program at this point. And they work in daycare centers with infants and toddlers every morning from 9 to 12. Then they come back to the Peabody House for classes and support groups. We have people come in and do workshops on things like child abuse or arts and crafts with children. Here's a class that I'm teaching. I teach the 3 courses with the program. This is a child development class. And we really encourage them to use the experiences that they're having with the children in the morning to come in and bring those back to class. So we're talking about, in this class we're talking, for instance, about intellectual development of children. And so they can really say, oh, I saw this in this child this morning. She was really showing that she understood the symbols that stood for, a picture in a book stood for a word or that kind of thing. And the courses that we have, there's a course in infant care, and we have another course in child development, and a 3rd course in infant toddler curriculum, which are all accredited through Bunker Hill Community College. Mm-hmm. So they get college credits for those. In the end, they are qualified as infant toddler daycare teachers, so that they can go out and get jobs in the field. And at this point, there are a lot of jobs in infant toddler care in particular because there's not a lot of people that have the specialized experience and training in this area. And we find that a lot of low-income women have real natural skills with children. They just don't have the professional training, the coursework, or even the language ability to talk in terms that make them sound professional. So we feel like we basically polish up a lot of natural skills that they have already. And it's kind of a nice tie-in with the old Peabody House, which did teacher training as well. So it's kind of like we've come full circle and back to...
You were telling me a story about how you met somebody.
The woman who runs the community education program at Bunker Hill Community College, Millie Wiggin, I ran into her, and she's the woman that we work with to get our credits for the courses. And I mentioned the Peabody House to her, and her eyes lit up, and she said, "I'm from the West End," and she was very excited.
Great.
So it's really nice to find those network. And
Sure. How many teachers do you have in your group?
well, last year we trained 13. This year we were cut back in our funding, and so we're actually right now we have 6 people that are about to graduate next month and who are looking for employment. If we have any employers out there. They're really a wonderful group, and they're very well trained. One thing that's really great about the program is that we really build in a lot of peer support. So they come in and talk about their problems with their children or transportation or how hard it is to juggle the roles of being a parent and a child care worker. And they really support each other through the whole program, which is a long 9 months, and through the job search afterwards. And we actually last night had a reunion with our group from last year out at a local restaurant. And it was wonderful just to see them come back and pick up the threads again and really help each other out. So it's been a great program.
How many sites do you have in the program?
Last year we had more than a dozen different sites, but it was a little hard on me, who's the supervisor, to get out and visit all the sites. So this year we've cut back to just 4 sites, mostly in Cambridge. We're actually working with 3 of our sites are Harvard University affiliated sites. So we're really looking at very high-quality infant toddler centers, some of the first infant toddler centers in the country, actually, the role models for everybody else.
That's wonderful.
So people are getting great
job.
training.
Yeah. Okay, our next guest is Sydney Storey, video coordinator and the youth drama director. Hi, Sydney. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Can you tell us about your program?
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about the performance place first, which is the theater, and it has 3 different programs. The adult performance series. I'm going to switch real quick to cover the clip. I'm also the video coordinator, and this is me here, as a matter of fact. Well, that's not me, but that's one of the kids that I was training here through this Peabody House in cooperation with SCAT. And they were training to run cameras for a Cabletown meeting about the Somerville schools, which they did a few weeks after that. One of those gentlemen was with me at the Peabody House last week. We videotaped some 13-year-old girls doing some original Haitian dancing up in the theater. So that's kind of the video coordinator part of my job, and I'm also the youth drama coordinator, where I do plays and theater exercises and things with children anywhere from age 10 through 20, really. We have one program in the fall for 10 to 12-year-olds, and then in the spring for more teenagers, 13 through 19 years old. And also an adult performance series up at the Performance Place, which is kind of based on a philosophy of theater without risk, in that people can do new works and new projects and do that without paying for rehearsal space or lights or sound, but just kind of share the box with the Peabody House, which for a theater person, you can believe me, is really a delight and an unusual opportunity. So it's great that the Peabody House is able to offer that. And there are 2, this is the youth, the teenage show that was just this spring, just a few weeks ago. Some cuts from that.
What was the name of that program?
The Poet and the Ramp by David Mamet. And that's a gentleman in a wig. He was thrilled to wear that wig, I've got to tell you. Another gentleman wore that very same wig just last week. The Peabody House, in cooperation with the Somerville Council on Aging and SCAT, once again, did a variety show at the Council on Aging where we had a senior citizen in that blonde wig, and he was equally as thrilled as was the 10-year-old who was
Great. So you have all age groups that you're catering
We
to.
try to serve everybody. We try to serve everybody.
In the
yeah.
old Peabody House, in the old West End of Boston, the theater was a great part of, it was famous all over the world, and some of the big-name stars got their start there. And I see it carry on the same tradition at the theater today.
Yeah. Let me mention one other thing that happens at the Performance Place, too, and that's, I think it's 5 Saturday afternoons during the year. Something happens for really little kids, like grade school kids, where puppeteers or mime artists or magicians come in to entertain little children. I know that's been incredibly popular. I can tell by the popcorn when I come back in on Monday.
And do you have some shows that you run at night, like for people to come in to view?
Yeah, that's part of the adult performance series, yes.
Do you take part in that also?
There's a full season of that year-round. Almost any weekend you can catch an adult performance. In 1989, 2 different shows at the Performance Place were named by the Boston Globe and then by the Boston Herald as 2 of the best out of 10 for the entire year.
That's wonderful.
So that I think it's carrying on the tradition of noteworthy and notable theater.
Sure is.
People there today will be the stars tomorrow.
Oh, and you're part of that, so that's great to have a good teacher there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Our next guest is Lorin Johnsen, Director of Child Care Services. Can you... Hi, Lorin, how are you today?
How are you? Good.
Good. Can you give us a insight into what you're doing?
Elizabeth Peabody House, when they started in 1986, one of their things that they wanted to accomplish was child care. And the preschool program that we presently have at 277 Broadway is a carry through of that beginning in 1896. The program is funded by a grant from Mary Garland, who was a teacher with Elizabeth Peabody House during the time that they worked together. The preschool program has a schedule of 3 days and 2 days, and it's a morning program from 9 to 11:30. And this is a view of the preschool daycare. There is a graduation going on, and this is located at 277 Broadway. The funding of the program is through the grant and also a minimal fee of $5 a day for the parents, for the children. So a parent who only wants to have 2 children, 2 days or 3 days. It isn't geared for a working parent as daycare is, and it's more of a social emotional introduction for children, so it prepares them for the kindergarten public school. We also have a daycare program, and actually 2 daycare programs in the Mystic Housing Project in Somerville. And the Mystic Daycare program was the first program in the project, and it serves 17 children, working parents. There are 4 teachers in the program, and we're open from 8 to 4 o'clock. And it's supported by the Department of Social Services sliding fee scale daycare. The infant toddler program has an enrollment of 16 children, and that is from infant to 2 years, 9 months the children are. And there's 4 teachers there, and we can supply daycare for 3 infants. As Suzanne mentioned, the program was the first in Somerville that supplied services for the infant toddler grouping. At 277 Broadway, we have an after-school daycare program for 30 children, and we have 3 teachers. We pick up the children at the public schools, at the Healy, the Winter Hill, the Cornwell, and the Brown School presently. And the children have a program from 2:30 to 6 o'clock, and then on early release day from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Most of our daycare programs are supported by the Department of Social Services. Presently, the state budget is being negotiated, and there is a $20 million cut, which would reduce services to parents quite drastically in the future. And I would encourage any parent who has needs child care to contact their representatives and senators and to encourage them to replace the $20 million. One of the more regressive things is if the system does get cut, it is going to cut out child care for income-eligible parents. Those parents that are working and have jobs will lose their access because the state would not be able to supply the daycare. Our program overall has a philosophy of supporting the development of the social, emotional, intellectual, and physical growth of the children to its fullest potential. And our program is basically a hands-on program where children are able to make choices and use the equipment. And we try to help the children develop sensitivity to all people in our community and to promote cooperation among the different ethnic groups in Somerville.
Boy, that's quite a full program. You go from morning to night.
It is.
Really, that's wonderful.
There is a total of 99 children in the program, and I did fail to mention a site at North Street, the Clarendon Hill Project, which we may open in the future.
Great. Let's hope the funding keeps on coming and they don't cut back.
I hope so
you
too.
can carry on your programs as they.
Because other services, as far as the protection of children, their health, and also because of abuse, child abuse, would also be cut. And the Office for Children and their ability to monitor and to promote quality programs would also be limited.
Okay. Suzanne, another part of the Peabody House is the camp in Sharon, Mass.
Camp Gannett.
Right.
Camp Gannett originally started as a boys and girls camp over 50 years ago. I believe the land was given to us in something like 1929. There it is. Isn't it gorgeous? What a nice piece of property. 22 acres, situated right smack dab on a beautiful lake out in Sharon, Massachusetts. For quite a while, they had a great deal of difficulty getting boys and girls to fill the camp. And the place was left in disrepair, and many people didn't care what happened to it. But when I came on board in 1986, I'm a camper from way back, Joe. I went up and visited the camp when the snow was still on the ground and decided we were going to start fixing it up. And with the cooperation of the board of the Peabody House and the camp committee, we have been able to do an awful lot of renovations at camp. And I have people telling me now that it looks like the way it looked, 30, 40 years ago when they were kids at camp.
I can attest to that because I went there when I was a kid. So it really does.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you. And we even put up a flagpole last year where the old one used to be, and we've repaved the basketball court and painted some of the buildings, putting the roofs on. What you're seeing now is a camp reunion, and by the way, Joe, our 4th annual one, or maybe even the 5th, is coming up next month, June 24th. So if you know of any former West Enders or former Camp Gannett people, we have upwards of 500 people at this reunion. They're welcome to come up. The cost is $10 a carload, which is donated to the Elizabeth Peabody House and the camps. But more than that, you can enjoy a beautiful day at the camp.
Beautiful lake, look.
We have a couple of programs there, Joe. One is family camping, whereby a family will rent a cabin, for the week or the weekend, and just stay there at a minimal cost, and enjoy the outdoors. And we do have a waterfront director. The person who just waved is a former waterfront director at Camp Up DiMaggio. We just put an additional crib in at the waterfront to make it a little more convenient for all of the different programs. We do a lot of collaborating in the city and a lot of cooperating with different agencies because in the times that we have now when money is short, people like United Way that gives us about 20% of our funding, they like to see this cooperation and coordination. And we do a lot of work with the city of Somerville. They run a youth program, a teen program there. It's called Project Away, and it's a 4-day intensified camping program. And what they do is peer leadership programs. And we also have the Cambridge Community Center and the East End House. They run their day camp at our camp. There's 110 children a day that are there, bussed in every day. Along with that, we have a lot of our activity groups during the winter will have take a day and go out. The women's group went out, the Vietnamese women's group went out, our teacher trainees went out, and it's just a nice spot to enjoy.
So you keep the camp tradition going also?
Oh, yeah. It's a busy place.
What are your hours at the Elizabeth Peabody House? You have such a full program. Wow.
We open about 8 o'clock in the morning for the daycare programs, and the doors usually don't close till almost close to midnight, because if there's not a play, which the plays are held on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings, but the actors are there rehearsing. And we do also have a couple of minority groups that use our facility for their church services on Sundays.
Oh.
We have a Haitian group and a Portuguese group that they call that's their church, and they have their church services. And we also rent space to the Massachusetts Senior Action Council, which is a large advocacy group for the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, along with what we do, we have other people doing a lot of things as well. And it makes for a nice atmosphere of helping and caring for the community.
Okay, how do you raise, where does your funding come from?
As Lorin said earlier, most of our funding for our daycare programs comes from the Department of Social Services. 20% of our income, approximately 20%, comes from the United Way. And we have some private grants and some private foundations that give us money, as Lorin was mentioning, the Garland Fund for the preschool program. We also have, we do collect some fees for some of our programs. The daycare is on a sliding fee scale, so that goes all, into the budget. The Himes Fund gives us some money.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I just got called yesterday that we're getting a grant again this year.
Great, great.
So it comes from a variety of sources,
Mm-hmm.
and we're very fortunate to be so well liked and be praised by many, many people that know of the Elizabeth Peabody House.
Mm-hmm.
That we do attract many donors and what have you. But we can use more.
Well, you have quite a diverse program there.
Yes.
You cater to the whole community, every section and sector of the community, and all age groups, and that's wonderful. I hope you keep on carrying on the tradition
I
of
hope
the
so,
Peabody
too.
House. And,
As
well,
I say,
that's
we're looking
wonderful.
forward to our centennial.
Okay, I'd like to thank our guests for being here today. You've been very informative, and you're all doing a great job in the Somerville community. A lot of good hard work goes in to carry these programs out. I hope you enjoyed our program today. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you at the next West End video newsletter.
Covered now with lines and creases, tickets torn